Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want a child so deeply.
And desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough.
Hey, I'm Ann, and usually here, and I'm Kendra, but she, at the time of this recording, is still out on maternity leave with her sweet new baby. And so if you're listening, you can still be in prayer for them as they're getting used to life with two littles. And we just thank God for them now, because her life looks a whole lot different than what it did when we first started this program. And we're thankful for that. If you're watching, you can see, though, that I am still joined by a pretty little lady that's here with me. And she is one of my dear, dear friends. I consider her more like family now because of how blunt she is with me about things. But my dear friend, Suzane Walker, she's actually a returning guest from a very long time ago.
Long time ago.
You actually, goodness, you were like one of the first, I know, within 10 people, and I might say even 5, because I was like, will you please come on the show? I don't know what we'll talk about yet, but no, if you would like, and I would encourage you to go back to the way beginning of Hannah's Heart, like 3 years ago, and listen to Suzane's story. She and her husband walked through infertility. They did foster care, they've adopted, and then they had some surprise pregnancies along the way.
Yep.
And so I still think it's funny because she told me she thought she had the flu and she was pregnant. And so anyway, they have an awesome story and an awesome testimony, but that is not why you're here today.
Not today.
You're here actually to talk about super heavy subject, actually. And so if you're listening to this and you might not be prepared, we're going to talk about planning funerals. And that sounds, to say it, and I'm still kind of questioning why I'm doing this episode, but Suzane was someone who came to me in the hospital right after we had John Micah, and I can still picture you perfectly. You just said, "Hey, I just want to offer to, take over the funeral arrangements for you." And I just remember like sitting there and just like, oh, okay, like, because you don't know what needs to happen next, when you're going through something like that. And that's why I feel like the show needs to be done. Rather that someone ends up listening to this that unfortunately will one day walk through needing to plan a baby's funeral, or a best friend of someone, or a mama of someone, of a daughter who's listening. You don't know that you might end up walking through this. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but unfortunately, I never saw that happening to me, not ever happening to me. And so I was definitely not prepared when now I'm being faced with planning, where do you have a funeral? What is a casket? All the things. So I'm saying all of that to say, if you don't feel like your heart needs to listen to this episode today, that is okay. We will see you next week. And you can come back and listen to it at another time if you need to. So that is why you're here. Thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not a professional funeral director. That's not my profession.
That's not what I said.
That's not why I'm here. Well, you said planning a funeral. I cannot give you all the do's and don'ts. I did for a little bit in college. I worked at a cemetery. I worked in the cemetery side of it, and it was very odd that I had this job. But it did make me a little bit more comfortable around that aspect of kind of the final moments of of honoring somebody's life. That's not why I came in and asked you that. I had actually just seen Matt and Andrea in the hallway, and I remember that when they lost their son, Andrea made the comment to me years later that she wasn't able to grieve immediately like other people were because she had to make all these decisions.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And I asked her before I asked you, I said, would it be inappropriate for me to just offer to take that from her and just kind of help? And she said, offer. And if she doesn't want you to, she'll say no. And
Wow.
yeah, so we actually had that conversation, Ann, right before I entered your hospital room. And I had no idea what you were going to say. And I had no idea. I mean, if you had said no, that would have been fine. The fact that you said yes, it allowed me to do two things. First, it allowed me to witness so many intimate moments between you and Will with John Micah. I would have wanted to have been there anyway as your friend.
Yeah.
But because I kind of had this purpose and this role, I was just there a lot more, and I was involved a lot more. And it allowed me, it was such a privilege to be allowed in the loop, so kind of inside as family. The other thing that it allowed me to do was it allowed me to love you in a very tangible way. A lot of times when there's loss, we don't know what to do, and you don't even know what to say.
Right.
And by you saying yes to me, it gave me this incredible opportunity to love on you and serve you as your sister in Christ and as your friend, and do that in a very hands-on way. That was still difficult, but not nearly as difficult as maybe it would have been for you.
Oh, for sure. Well, that is, I've now gotten to help. It's not like a pride thing, but yeah, there's been now 2 families that have reached out to us since John Micah's funeral, and just asking what do I do as her sister? What do I do as her mama? And so, I've even told those people, I'm like, I don't, a friend did this for me, she came in, I even wrote a blog about it, and I think I said in the blog, I don't know what all Suzanne had to do to prepare for John Micah's special day. You just kind of came in and did. And that is you talking about getting to be parts of those, intimate moments and to love on us that way. We felt so much love in that way. And it was just things I think I shared in the blog, I didn't have the strength. I had gone through a C-section, and then the thought of leaving a baby in the hospital and all the physical aspects, but then all the mental and spiritual stuff as well. So for all the questions that you saved me from having to answer, and the decisions, heavy decisions, having to be made. I think you asked which funeral home we wanted to use and which songs you wanted to be played. I think that is, and then we read over the obituary, and so you handled all of that with such grace and love and dignity for my baby boy that I was really scared, because he wasn't ever here. He was never part of this earth, I guess. But you treated his life and his day of celebration, his funeral, as if it mattered just as much as he had been here for 100 years.
Absolutely, it did. I mean, quantity. Andrea actually has said quantity of life does not define quality.
Quality, yeah.
And just because he didn't live as long as we would have liked doesn't mean that his life was less special.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a great picture of kind of the specialness of life that God instills in us and God gives us. I think that when you step into that kind of role, when you say, hey, do you want me to do this for you? And I don't think it's just with funeral planning. I think it could be with anything. You don't really know what you're stepping into, and that's fine. I will say that you had so many. There are just always so many people who want to help, and so more than actually having to type out programs or make signs. It was really designating, like, hey, is there something that you would like to do? Here's something that needs to be done. Can
Yeah.
you take this and go with it, and just confirm with me that it's been done?
Right.
And then it was kind of being a go between all those different people who wanted to help and who wanted to love on you and Will, and then the funeral home and the church. And in terms of planning a funeral, it was probably one of the easiest because there were so many people who just wanted to, they just wanted to help. One thing that you did that I think was significant was you kind of said, when people started asking things, you directed them towards me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, with your family especially, because you and Will were grieving, but your family was also
Right.
grieving, and honoring this life. When there are lots of people involved, and there always are with family, that comes with lots of opinions.
It does.
And I can remember a couple of times that somebody said something to you, or wanted to make a change, and you kind of just said, that's Suzanne's department. And there were also a couple of times where you said, I like that change. Somebody go tell Suzanne I want to make that change.
Yeah.
And so you kind of took the ball, and you were fine saying, that's not really something that I am going to answer. I'm not going to concern myself. And there's somebody who's going to answer that, and she's over here. And then there were things that were important to you. Like, I think we made a change in his obituary.
Yeah.
That was really important. And it was important to some people in your family,
Right.
too.
To the grandmamas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were fine with it. And as long as you were fine with it, we went with it. So, yeah, I think you played an important part in that. And I have no idea. I never asked you how difficult that was for you to have to kind of say, I'm not answering that, or, yes, I want to do that.
Well, it gave me I'm a people pleaser by nature. And so to not have that burden of like, oh my goodness, because like that sounds so silly now as I'm saying it, because I'm the mama of the baby who had passed away. So like, if I was dealing with anyone else, I'd be like, you say exactly what you want, you deserve, But in my head, when I'm dealing with it, I'm like, I don't want to offend anybody. Like, well, that was a cute idea, like that kind of thing. And so to just be to hands up, just relinquishing that control and those decisions, and like whatever Suzanne says, it gave me a peace of mind. I also knew how much you cared about it, and that I didn't have to worry like if something was gonna not go on or something bad was gonna happen. And you just stayed in such good communication with us. I still feel bad about the time it's not funny, but you rushed into that hospital room and you're like, okay, and you needed us to look over stuff, and you're like, I said, what is this for? And you said the newspaper, and I was like, oh, I don't want it in the newspaper. And you're like, okay, well, that's what this was for. And so, goodness, and now I'm like, why didn't I want it in the newspaper? He just felt, because I guess, goodness, I feel like Facebook announcements are taken so seriously these days, and it's like, you haven't announced it on Facebook, it's not been announced. And we had like all of our friends and family knew he was coming, and lots of people at our church knew he was coming. I just had not posted about him on Facebook. Now there's a little guilt that like goes with that of like, why didn't I make sure I let people know about him on Facebook? But at the same time, it was like he was so special, and just, I don't know. And so it was like, no, it doesn't have to go in the newspaper, but you were, busting your booty to make sure that like that was going to happen if I wanted that to happen. And so there's just things that, I feel like the more intimate details we definitely had a say in, but like, I guess you would say all the fillers, all the like the sign-in book, the where people are going to be standing, who, that kind of thing, that I hate to say didn't matter, because it did.
Mm-hmm.
It mattered that those things got done, but it, that was taken care of, and things that I didn't have to think about.
Yeah, and I think with some of those things, like with a guest book, or things that are kind of typical or traditional with a funeral, there were a lot of those things that I didn't ask you about, and we just did. And it was kind of one of those things where, you know what, in a few weeks, we'll ask Anna if she wants this. And if she doesn't want it, then we just won't tell her about it. We
Yeah.
won't give it to her. And if she does, then we have it.
Yeah.
And so there were several things that we kind of did like that. I think there were the note cards and the signs. And then there was the one sign that I saved forever. And you asked me about months later. And I was like, it's in my closet.
I still have that sign. Yeah.
So we tried to hold on to everything. But again, there really were so many people who said, is there anything left that we can do for Anne? And so at that point, we really just got to be creative and say, you know what, let's take some flowers from, the graveside and memorialize them. And I'm not sure if that got done or not. I think
it's hanging above my bed.
Oh, good.
It looks beautiful.
So there were, you can be creative when there are so many things. But part of that is that you have to be able to trust people to get it done.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anybody that asked to do anything that I was like, I don't know if I want to give you this big job. Everybody they were your dear friends and they loved you so much. Yeah. It was as important to them as it was to me, and I knew it would be to you.
Yeah.
I think the newspaper thing, when you have that kind of situation, it's so intimate.
Yeah. And
to put it out there, like this feels
letting people into what we do.
You're letting people into something that, and it makes you so brave to do that. It really does, Anne. There are so many things that we just keep close to our chest, and I think in a way that can be healthy, but in a way it doesn't always allow us to heal all the way. Yeah. But certainly in the moment of a deep grief like that, it is not something that you want to just
blurt out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's so special to me, and I do hold him in his memory, and absolutely anything he might have touched or that I bought for him beforehand, it's all very valuable to me and safe with me. His blanket, his hospital blanket lays under my pillow every single night, and it's just a way that I know I have a piece of him. And I don't know if it'll always be that way. I wrap Nora up in his blanket sometimes, and people might think that's odd, but it's her big brother, and I hope that there's a little connection there with him for her one day. But as you're never prepared to go through something like that, like even I hope this podcast helps somebody in a way, but there's no way it's going to prepare someone to well, I'm prepared to make those decisions now. But if I could say something to any mama or parent, grandparent that could possibly walk through this one day, is to let your people in, your people that love you and care about you, to let them in those intimate moments and times, to make sure your heart's taken care of, to make sure you're physically taken care of, your marriage is taken care of. Because Will, one thing Will wanted to do is make the first little hole in the ground with his shovel, and that's terrible, but for some reason that's something that Will wanted to be a part of as John Micah's daddy, to know that he did his job of the one thing he could do physically for his son. And then I did not stay, after John Micah was buried, or I did not want to see the casket go into the ground, and but Will wanted to be there until the last little bit of dirt, was added on. And so, I don't know how Will did that. I left and I wanted to go pick flowers from my mama's house and from my house to add to his little special place that we call it now. But yeah, I think everyone just handles those situations so differently.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever told you this.
Oh, goodness.
I'm going to be able to do this. I'm sure of it. But because we walked so closely in that, and you mentioned, Will, one of the reasons that I was able to just kind of stop our life and help you with that. Our lives did not stop, but put so much effort and energy towards that was because I had an incredible support. All of my kids knew that Miss Ann was sad and Mr. Will was sad. Lee, of course, my husband, knew what was going on, and they just rallied.
Wow.
You know, I mean, they were handling suppers
Yeah.
and helping me, and you know, that was an incredible blessing to me to just be able to say, I need y'all to step up. This is, and I didn't go into detail or anything with them, but to tell them that. The other thing, though, that because you're talking to anybody who may go through this, as a friend, if you ever have to go through this and you get to have that privilege of walking alongside, there will also be moments that are you don't see coming. And I think being able to go home and grieve was important and delayed. It was delayed for me, which was fine because but that's just like I didn't know that was going to happen.
Wow.
And I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't go back and redo that at all. But I think the day that I had to go to the hospital and I had to go with the social worker and look at caskets, I came home. That was a really rough day. And I just remember thinking, I'm so glad Ann didn't have to do that. So if you get the privilege of helping a friend, there will also be hard moments that you have to process and grieve and work through.
Gosh.
But do it. Do it. It's worth it.
Well, seeing that something as a parent, as the one who lost a baby, you don't realize that would have that much of effect. And I know that sounds so silly, but I would have never known. I don't know why I wouldn't have known that, but like to know that my friends grieve the loss of my baby as well, and then to see your friend or your daughter or your sister to go through something. That's something my little sister has shared. Like, I had never seen my big sister be that sad before, and so there's a lot of parts, but it is just being there for each other, literally every day. And we have been so covered. We're still so covered with love. Our producer asked, does someone need to be qualified before volunteering, like in a trained way?
Oh, heavens, no, I don't think so. I mean, I did the that's a great question, though.
Yeah.
I was not trained in any way.
Okay. Well, I thought you were. I was like, oh, she knows how to do things.
No. And we did work with the funeral home. I mean, there were some things that,
right.
He knew how to roll a casket in and how to arrange the flowers on top. And, when I went to the florist and I said, here, and I don't remember if you had special flowers that you wanted or not. Just
I think I wanted hydrangeas.
Yeah, I think when I went to her, I mean, at every turn, people were so compassionate and they were so kind. And I remember even the florist said, I lost a baby one time a long time ago. And I know exactly what I want to do. And she asked if it was a boy or girl, and she said these will be beautiful. And I mean, a florist knows how to do a piece that goes on top of a casket, and you don't have to give those kinds of details.
Right.
Those people who are doing that day in and day out, they already know.
That's right.
That kind of stuff. Really, just somebody needs to be willing to kind of delegate and organize. I would say that's the gist, kind of just delegating, organizing, lots of communication with lots of different people, and keeping those lines of communication open.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to be really clear. I know on the day of the funeral, we had to be really clear with people.
Yeah.
You're not coming back here.
Yeah, because we did. That was one thing we did. Our hospital here allowed Will and I to go get him dressed for the day, and they actually allowed me to leave holding him.
Yeah.
And so I got to ride in the car holding him, and it felt so good to get to do that. But then, walking into the church I then wanted to like protect him, and I didn't want people walking up to see, So we did. I would encourage anyone to do that. Have that family room, and to let your special friends and your family, come back there. We sang Amazing Grace together, and grandparents got to hold him for the last time and things like that.
Yeah.
So just, the day will end up being, as special as it can be, Okay, so time went by like way, way fast. We're getting the producers, Mr. Mark, he's holding up our timer for us. So I was kind of worried we weren't going to have a whole lot of content, but man, we could keep going. But thank you for allowing me to share about his special day, because even though it was about his death, it was still, we got to talk about his life, know. And I think that's why my heart really wanted to share this. And so if you're walking through this or know someone who will walk through this one day, don't be afraid to reach out and maybe ask for more pointers or something like that.
Be brave.
Be brave. Yeah, that's what I'd put it. I love you, Suzanne.
Love you too.
Thank you guys for listening to Hannah's Heart, and we'll be back again next week.